Now we're about an old neighborhood. See those old houses? That's an old house. And over time, all of these old houses have been torn down, and now these giant houses have been built on the properties. I don't know how much they're selling these properties for, but all these old houses, they've been here for years. That house predates when I was here. These little duplexes were here when I was here. This house here, oh, what's his name? What's his name? I can't remember his name. His family lived there. We used to all play together. These houses here are old, all torn down, and new ones built. This guy, yeah, this is like the third house I've built. First house burned down a couple years back. That house has been there for a while. That house, a lady named Sue used to live there. And that house was in bad shape, and they rebuilt it and finished it up and everything. The house is kind of pre-existing. This house right here, that was right next to our house. And we had a little, I don't know, my family had like a dispute. This is where I lived. Not those houses. The house that we lived in, they tore those houses down a long time ago, unfortunately. And now these little duplexes here, they were here. We knew the family who actually owned these things. I think they had a son named Chip. Ah, shoot. But I had a friend that lived there. I had a friend in when I was in, I think, 5th grade, something like that. But these houses here, these big old monstrosities. This used to be one house up on, this is Early Street. And this old house here was built probably 1950s, late 50s. Originally had a water well and a septic tank and everything. None of the trees exist. It was a big old pecan tree. Dang it. See that house there? Okay, that house there, they had a Corvette. They didn't like us that much. And I don't think we liked them either, the original owners of that house. Because in the backyard of our house, we had some chickens, we had ducks, and we had I think some rabbits, and we had a little farm going in the back of our house. Some ferrets. I think we had some ferrets too, pet rats. Anyway, they had dogs. One day, one of our chickens flew over the little fence, and the dog killed it. And he came across our property, fussing at us, and throwing the chicken on the driveway. Talking about your chickens getting our yard, and my dogs are making my dogs bark, and all that mess. So eventually, I think he called the city on us. I think, and the city came by and said, "Look, you can't have farm animals in your backyard." So I think the chickens we gave to somebody. The rabbits, we took the rabbits to Memorial Park, I think, and let them loose in the wild. And the rats, we just again, we went to some field and just let them loose in the wild. Yeah, but yeah, that used to be one house. It wasn't two houses. My brain tells me this was almost the location of the original driveway. And we had a big old pecan tree right there, and over there we had a big pine tree and some kind of oak looking tree. Very back we had an oak tree, and then we had a huckleberry tree, little dingleberries, or how they want to call them. And our house was an old center block house. Had a sloped roof that was like asphalt and gravel, kind of weird. But it's it wasn't a steep gabled roof. We can hop on the oak tree and hop on. We had to do it every year almost, because the oak tree would drop acorns, and the acorn would start sprouting on our roof because it was gravel and other dirt, debris, and organic stuff. And if you didn't be careful, you would have pine trees and oak trees trying to sprout on top of your house. So we had to go up there, once a year to pick up the sprouts, pick the trees off the top of the house. They wouldn't get too big. But yeah, this house had a lot of memory in this house. I wish I don't have a single photo of how it used to look. It was just a center block house, white center blocks, red trim. My mother and stepdad, the owner, lived in Oklahoma and had some kind of agreement. We got it was a 3-bedroom house, and we got it for like, my brain was trying to remember $350 a month or something. But we actually did a lot of work in the house, painted the house. We did a lot of maintenance on the house. I think that was part of the deal. We got cheap rent in exchange for us maintaining the house for him. But yeah, we lived there for years, a couple years. Lived there in the backyard. We actually dug a hole in the backyard. It went down like 12 feet. I'm not even lying. We went down to we hit the water table. We couldn't go no further. In fact, we couldn't. In fact, we did hit the water table. We dug down. We had steps going down into the ground, and the whole goal was we built a little clubhouse looking thing over it, and got some old tar paper felt. Made walls, and we dug down, put steps, and our goal was to dig a tunnel in the backyard and aim that tunnel under in that tunnel under our bedroom. And now the old house, cinder block wall house with floors. Beneath that floor was dirt. A few places where the wood has rotted out because this place used to flood. I ain't lying. There's a bayou outside of this house here. There's a little, I won't call it a bayou, I call it a ditch. Back when I was young, it looked like it was deeper than this now. But a few times it rained, this street was level. We actually had water inside of our house, and the water came up from basically under the floor. And so this place we had duct tape over our floor because it was frogs and stuff, and I think even once a little snake came through or something. But our plan was to dig that hole, dig that tunnel under our house, up to our closet, our bedroom closet, cut a hole in that closet, and we'll have an underground clubhouse that we can access from our closet into the backyard. And it didn't happen. My stepdad went out there one day, and he saw us digging, and dirt, you can't hide that much dirt. Dirt started, because we built the clubhouse, had the tar paper roofing felt over the clubhouse, and then the dirt began to pile up around the clubhouse. And I guess at a certain point in time, he realized, dang, that's a lot of dirt out there. He went out there, and we had a little makeshift flap on the front. He opened that flap up, and he saw these steps descending down into this depth of this hole. And he did construction, he did dewatering. So he knew, this thing wasn't shored up. It was just a raw hole into the ground. That was just our limit of digging was the water table. We had literally, at a certain point, we dug it deep, and then I think one morning, we went out there to continue our work, and it was about that much water sitting in the bottom of the hole. Clear water too. It was probably drinkable, I don't know. But so we had to backfill some dirt and realize that is the depth we can dig it and no deeper. But he saw that big old deep hole down there, and he just freaked out. He said, "Oh my God!" And then he realized we're digging a tunnel. We're tunneling under dirt. It's just clay. Houston ground here is mostly clay. And so yeah, we tore that clubhouse. They made us tear that clubhouse down. We threw some the old pump in the garage. We had a pump in the garage for the water well that we used to have. This is city water now, but when the house first got built, it was water well because the well was sticking up out of the backyard still. And the old pump and the old water pump was still there, and the big water tank was still there. We threw that pump in that hole, and we used the hole almost like a trash dump for a long time. So in the back of these houses here, if they ever wanted to go back there and dig down, they could probably find some all kind of cool little trinkets and toys from the 80s. But yeah, it's kind of shame this place that they tore the sucker down. I think there was a friend of the family who finally bought this house from the owner. And if I'm right, he paid like 50 grand for it, for the house, 50 grand. And if I'm thinking right, when I look these houses up, they're each going for over 300,000 a pop. So whoever bought this property made a killing. They made a killing for it. So I'm not sure if these are rentals or if these are actual paid, owned, the little duplex or whatever they're called, patio home, townhomes. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're called. Call something. But yeah, this is Early Street. Now, back when I was here, this was a gravel road. This was like an asphalt gravel. There was we had ditches each side, there was no culvert, no drainage and everything. That's probably why it flooded so easily. Now, this house right here in the corner, I should put this on a mount. House right here, that was Jonathan. Jonathan, that was his house. That was his name. That was a kid who lived there. His mama and dad lived there. His dad did countertops, but he lived there. And that house has been torn down. Now it's just giant monstrosity of a house. And all our houses had yards. Most of the houses are so crushed together that you don't have no yards no more. But that's all for the Early Street, where I used to live. Trying to think if I can find any more members than that. Peace, electric key.